What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the 8th album and major label debut by English rock band Chumbawamba. Basically, this project is called Tubthumper and it came out in the late summer of 1997. The thing about this particular project is it's known for the hit single Tub Thumping, which is one of the bigger songs out of the late 90s. I'd have to say in particular, it's a big deal. Particularly led this, it was a huge deal in Europe, but it also particularly led this album to triple platinum status in the United States as far as that pitch can happen. But after this particular single, not much kind of happened afterward. Kind of similar to like when you think of like Eiffel 65, some of those type folks that drop like I'm Blue, and then like the Cat, like Hadaway that did What Is Love, some of those type ones. A lot of folks that were trying to blow up in Europe, a lot of folks that blew up in Europe, some of those type pitches just didn't cross over as wholesomely well in the United States back in the 90s. There were some other folks like the ones that the LaBouche band that did Be My Lover, some of those type pitches. A lot of these folks just kind of became one hit, two hit wonders as far as that pitch kind of particularly happened just because they didn't translate quite as well. And kind of the combination about this, I feel like I definitely feel like Chumbawamba had somewhat of a good amalgamation. I definitely think that Tub Thumping is a classic 90s staple, one of the defining songs out of the second half of the 90s. I have to say, this is kind of the concept that the execution behind some of these other songs just didn't amount to much. Like I feel like the second single, Amnesia, was at least a good song. It's definitely Amnesia is not as distinct as Tub Thumping. I would have to say it does have some good amalgamations, kind of similar to what happened when you think of Eiffel 65, who had the hit single I'm Blue. They had a follow-up single which is called Move Your Body or something like that. Pretty good second pitch. I think just the combination of how many times that Tub Thumping was kind of played just throughout the, I'd have to say throughout the concept of how many times Tub Thumping was probably played throughout the late 90s and stuff. I think they just probably, I think folks probably just got used to that particular song, and Amnesia just didn't have the snap appeal of that particular one. The thing about Tub Thumping is just the fact that the single snap of it, the melodies on that song are just on point. The chorus is distinct. It stands out in a huge way just because the concept is just so it's just so consistently replayable, and just like the replay value about that particular song just really has like a consistent factor about it that just kind of makes it just as like a statement making type song. This happens with rap songs in some cases where you'll get a song like Make It Rain or something like that, or We Fly High, one of those type pitches, and then the follow-up single just doesn't have the same kind of chantable, this type recitable type chorus. It just is like distinct and just overall like a statement making kind of just one that just has like that atmosphere, just being something that you're going to say, whether in like at work, just in blue collar fashions, or just whether it's at a bar or just at work, or some of these type pitches, just places, just universal type appeal about it. It's not to say that Amnesia didn't have that, but it just was not quite, the chorus on Amnesia was just not quite as definitive and distinct about it. And I would also say the chick on the song, I like the chick on the song on Tub Thumping. She definitely had a pretty good appeal on that particular song. Real good melodies on there. Plus, the guy that raps on that particular song is pretty good as well. But the guy that raps on like Tub Thumping does not appear again on Amnesia. I think that combination was definitely something that they should have tried to go along with the second time, which is just kind of the concept. I look after Amnesia. The chick on the song that was on Tub Thumping is on this particular song, but the melodies are just not quite as snappy and just overall appealing. Like when she says like "pissing the night away" and Danny Boy and some of that type, when she's singing the melodies like "Pissing the Night Away" and Danny Boy and some of those type melodies, just as far as that pitching goes along, it just has a very defining type aspect. Just the replayability factor, just hearing that over and over, just the concept is just a lot more melodic and just distinct in terms of the concept of just being a song that you're going to hear pretty much for a good while, as far as that would kind of go throughout 97, 98, 99. But it's not that Amnesia is a bad song. It's a good dance song. I feel like this is a good oriented type one, but it kind of loses the alternative rock type appeal, kind of the dredge. I feel like Tub Thumping just had the overall aspect of being like some alternative rock, just great for like 4:35 p.m. as like the pitch of work is just getting done and stuff like that as you get ready to head out to a bar just to go forth with some pub crawls or call up the homies, some pitches like that. I had the same particular, but Amnesia, this one's more amongst like the dance floor. I look after the concept. I realize I'm kind of really talking about the singles here, but it's just kind of the thing as to the reason, because the thing about this particular band is it's not just the fact that this is like a one-hit wonder in terms of the album, but really this is about their only hit song in terms of like all the albums that they've done. They had like particularly two other songs that charted in Europe, and they're from Europe, so for them to be a one or two hit wonder in like their home country and pitches like that kind of leads to the concept that a lot of their music that they put out afterward just really didn't make a dent whatsoever. Didn't even, I mean, at least Amnesia charted on like the bubbling under 100 and like the Billboard 100, but really this band was not given much of a chance, and they just didn't have much aspects apart from that. I just feel like they pretty much just they have like more than 10 or 13. They have more than 10 albums, I would have to say in particular, probably more than 13, 15, I'd have to say, but just the concept they were just never able to get much further in any chart territory beyond that. But they do have a series of charting singles on here. At least Amnesia was a particularly top 10 single in like Europe and Canada, some of those type pitches. It did hit the Billboard 100 bubbling under singles. And then Top of the World, Ole 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 was like a hit single that was like released as a bonus track later on when it got a reissue in like 1998 as far as that picture happened. That was like a modest hit in Europe as far as that particular kind of went. But yeah, just to talk about Amnesia, once again, this particular one is a good song. I feel like this is some good Euro pop and good Euro dance type music, but it loses the alternative rock dredge of tub thumping, I'd have to say, and it just doesn't have the melodies that are quite as distinct or the chorus. So it's just kind of the concept. I feel like the chick on the song probably gives like a 7.5 type quality of a melody and overall chorus on Amnesia. Just kind of serviceable, just kind of like, you know, just good but not superbly outstanding. Just I feel like the electricity behind Tub Thumping was just distinct, and just overall the bite is just very feral and ferocious on that particular one, but it just didn't have the same snap. It's really not to pigeonhole them into being one-hit wonders, but I just think the melodies are just not quite as sing-songable this time on that particular song. This kind of thing, but they definitely needed the guy that rapped on that particular song. I just think the melody, just the composition behind the melodies on that song, I mean, it's good. It's just it just doesn't have like the ferocity of like when you think of like the chick on the song on Tub Thumping just having like some of the like it was the chick on that particular song on Tub Thumping just had more allure on that particular song, and just the bite of that the melodies on that one just didn't have the same approach on Amnesia. But it is a good 1-2 punch. So we'll go ahead and kind of. So there are 3 singles on this particular album, I'd have to say, and the first single is Tub Thumping. Like I was saying, this is a nice one. It's like a vintage kind of 90s. It's like a vintage kind of 90s highlight. I would have to say it's like a feel good kind of late work shift haze. I would definitely feel like, and this is definitely some gathering music and overall a crowd starter of the song, I'd have to say. Definitely some good pub crawl type music, not just out in Europe, but also in the United States. Also, just some good watching soccer or football type tones to kind of have just at a sports bar, pitches like that, getting some brews in your system, pitches like that. Mild kind of college rock and dance staple as far as that pitching goes. Definitely some frat music, things like that, just to socialize, just sports bar and just kind of engaging kind of this turn up type, this night venue type haze to kind of get. But the problem with this particular song is it's such a good snappy type one. Just everything about this song, just with the distinction of it, it's kind of a tricky song to replicate. I would kind of feel like just the affability behind it. I know that just having the same composition and doing that like a second, third, and fourth time probably would have gotten tiresome. But the concept behind it is I think they just need to take the nutrients of this particular song. Definitely have like I think the guy that was rapping on this particular song probably should have had like a follow up, and then the melodies that the chick had in the song when she sings on here. But she's definitely a poignant moment on this particular song. I'd have to say the chick on the song really does a great job. It's just the melodies. It's just the combination trying to make those melodies kind of work a little bit better on like subsequent songs that just didn't happen, and then combining that with like a recitable type chorus that probably could have been like a statement making, just the way when they're like, I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never going to keep me down. It just needed something with that sort of recitable type appeal that could have just had that bite to just have like that aspect behind it. It's kind of a motivational song in a mild sense too. But Amnesia is the second single. This is a nice one. This is like the attempt at like labeling like Chumbawamba not being a one-hit wonder. It's a decent song here. I feel like this is like a 7.5 out of 10 in terms of quality of it. I feel like most folks probably just I think this is the second biggest song by them, and the vast majority of folks would probably say 9 out of 10 or 90 out of 100 people don't even recognize this song as full blown. I'd have to say maybe 90s freaks from Europe and pitches like that, and possibly 90s freaks from Canada, but for the most part, it's not as likely. This is kind of a stellar kind of combo punch with Tub Thumping, I would definitely have to say. And this is more dance and less rock, I'd have to suppose. This one's really not as much alternative rock type dredge, like I was saying. It's more dance, Euro pop type tone. This one needed more of like a statement to be made in like the chorus, I would say. That just particularly kind of happens to be the concept. Like I feel just to say once again, I feel like the melodies were just not as ferocious on here. That's the real concept of it. It's just when you have a second single and you have like a huge single, you got to come with it with the same heat and energy as you do on the first one, or just you get labeled one-hit wonder pretty quickly. Maybe they were just being more jovial with it, but it's just kind of the concept that the song is good. It's a good concept. It's definitely good dance energy. If you're just going to like a European dance club pitch just like that, or just dance clubs in general that might have some Euro pop, it's a pretty good concept, but the chorus just the chorus and the overall vibes are just not A plus list or A list overall in general. I'd have to say it's this kind of thing. If you're getting more hole in the wall, kind of second rate, kind of secondary type songs just being played out and about, this might be a good one to kind of have. But I just don't think the notoriety of this particular song is going to be very large and vast. I'd have to say. So that's kind of the thing. Drip, Drip, Drip is the third single, and I don't recommend this one at all, which is kind of unfortunate. It's just kind of a concept. This was kind of a work shift type one in like a European type sense. It's just kind of something that you would hear in like New York or pitches like that. And like a standard commerce type morning or afternoon as far as that pitch kind of goes. Just some brunch time type music to kind of get, but I just didn't really appreciate the approach behind it. Just didn't really have much appeal. This was kind of trying to be a jivey and bustling type one, but just the affability behind that particular song was just kind of a dud. I would feel like this felt like standard commerce, but I think the aspect and the aim that they were going with tub thumping just worked a lot better. I'd say just that dredgy kind of evening rock just works a lot better. This kind of happens to be a thing. The pseudo fourth single is Top of the World. Now, this is one that was part of the World Cup of 1998. This was kind of a song that was a part of like the World Cup of 1998. I'd have supposed in particular. This is like truly one of Chumbawamba's last charting singles that had in particular. It's a good Top of the World, kind of has mild traces of tub thumping in there with a little bit of amnesia just within the pitch. It's another pub crawl type one to kind of get. It's like a solid kind of mid-paced dance and day motion type song to kind of get here. This is a little bit of a work shift. It's kind of a good sense. This would probably be a pretty solid follow up. This probably would have suited better than Amnesia to be the second single if they had come up with this one a little bit sooner. I'd have to say definitely a good follow up just to kind of have. It's just once again the energy is a little bit more mellow and the melodies. The chick on the song that did tub thumping is just not quite as affable on this particular song either. But it's just a good. The guy that raps on that particular song is on this particular song as well. So it's just you get kind of it here and there with these particular ones. This is like a good unwind from like makeshift. I would feel like in some turn up at a pub. I would definitely have to say. So I feel like tub thumping and Top of the World like a good 1-2 punch just to have for like some bar hopping just within pitches like that, pub crawl type music, just standard sports bar and just crazes of just watching soccer, football, some of those type things. Just in particular as far as that kind of goes, just getting nachos and chicken wings, some of those type things. It's a good concept. Even if the energy is not quite as fair, I'd probably say that the energy on Top of the World is probably like an 8, 8.5 out of 10 in terms of the craziness. The energy on Top of the World is probably like an 8, 8.5 out of 10, where this is definitely, I mean, I feel like Amnesia has the better dance bounce. That's like a night type pitch to kind of have for like some unwind of just like raves and pitches like that, just within a relative aspect. Good, relatively melodic type one, just the melodies or the chorus or what holds that particular song back full blown. But Top of the World probably is the better song ultimately compared to Amnesia. Just has a little bit more of like the commercial snap, somewhat of tub thumping, but it's just the chorus just does not deliver quite as full blown. I feel like I'd say probably about 80% of the song composition at Top of the World probably holds up to like tub thumping. I'd have to say it's just kind of the concept that the chick on the song that having those melodies on tub thumping probably just need to come through a little bit better. I think the ole ole type part probably if that had been a little bit more melodic and a little bit more affable, probably would have nailed it a lot better. This is kind of the thing about it, but for the most part, it's pretty highly enjoyable type song. I'd say, and a good 1-2 punch with tub thumping. I'd say for like some good sports bar and pub type crawls as far as that kind of goes. Some good affability. But that's the concept about this particular album. So out of 13 songs on here, counting the Top of the World ole ole type stuff, the Top of the World ole ole type song, I'd say there's basically 6 songs out of those 13 I recommend. So that's 3 out of 4 singles. Didn't recommend Drip Drip Drip, but the 6 songs I recommend would be Tub Thumping, Amnesia, Top of the World, Outsider, Mary Mary, and Small Town. So basically, Outsider's a pretty nice one. It's like a dramatic kind of 90s Euro pop type tune. I would have to say it's like an engaging kind of album cut. I would definitely feel like this has a good tempo and sense of pace. I would definitely feel like this is an easy bop to kind of zone out to. So there are some pretty good dance type bops to kind of get on here, just a good pitch behind it. I think what Chumbawamba was trying to do is just have some of that commotion that kind of like standard 90s Europop kind of had and stuff as far as that pitch kind of went, just less focused on like the chorus and the overall radio type appeal. And to that end, they do succeed. I feel like they have some good songs in here. It's just kind of the concept that in terms of songs that folks are going to know full blown and be like, well, what song, what the hell is this? That sort of concept. It just doesn't have that full blown snap. But I look after some of these album cuts. Outsider's a nice dance balance of a song, kind of similar to Amnesia. These would be some good ones to kind of hear on a night outing or just standard out on the town in like a Friday, Saturday, just within a dance and rave type sense. Another one like that is Mary Mary. This has one of the best productions on here. Then Small Town's like a good trance type one, I'd have to say. But basically, Mary Mary's like an interesting kind of electro club hopper, I would have to say in particular. This is a more jolting than the rest of the album. I would definitely feel like this is a surprising type one. If they had had more songs like this, I probably could have said they could have had a single like this, and that would have been a pretty different That would have been a pretty different concept. I mean, the thing about it was, is just being able to have songs. They kind of went with like a more kind of alternative rock type pitch for their first single. For their first single, Tub Thumping, I would have to say was just kind of the concept. I think folks got used to that and expected them to do more alternative rock, which they didn't do. They kind of switched it back to dance and Europop, and then they kind of got trapped in the sense of having to do that, but not being able to replicate it with the right idea and formula to really get that done. So it's this kind of thing. The Europop is good, but it just doesn't have like the distinction of like something that they just were not able to really get a radio single for that. But Mary Mary definitely has one of the best beats on here. This is once again more jolting than the rest of the album, I'd have to say, and this is like a thrilling groove and pace that this song particularly kind of has. So it's just a real excellent type one. Good taste of like some 90s Europop just pitches like that. Just reminds me of something that Jeffree Star or like Adam Lambert, some of those type folks would kind of do. Blood on the Dance Floor, just folks like that that kind of do more EDM type music. This is kind of like a taste of EDM before it kind of blew up in like the late 2000s, early 2010s. Not quite as much like DJ infested type music, but definitely concept like a 90s variation of that. This would have to say in particular, definitely an excellent type one. Small Town is a pretty nice one as well. It's like a softcore kind of trance club haze of a song, I'd have to say. It's like a late shift kind of lambent, kind of cool off type music. I would definitely feel like this is like a grab a cold brew and kind of enjoy the night type song. This one's a pretty nice one. This is another of my favorites off this particular album. Just really appreciate the relatively relaxed and just kind of the relatively relaxed and unwind kind of kickback type tone that this particular song kind of has. Some of these type moments are just real good. This is probably Small Town is probably a song that needed another one just like it, I'd have to say. But for the most part, this album has a pretty good kick of energy. I'd have to suppose in particular. It's just kind of the concept. It's just kind of a dicey and spotty type album. Just doesn't really have the full blown appeal, especially in like the singles, I'd have to say. But I just look after the concept that it has its moments, I would have to say, but it's just kind of the concept that some of these just kind of come off just within an awkward kind of concept and just don't really deliver. We should talk about some of the complaints on here. There's a lot of songs on here that just really feel like the concept that they just barely feel like they should be on a retail album as far as the pitch kind of comes behind it. I just feel like some of these songs are kind of more chopping block kind of sketchy type songs. I feel like some of these songs are just more chopping block kind of rough draft type songs. Just some of these like Good Ship Lifestyle is just kind of an awkward type one. This kind of felt like one that was kind of at sea, but just the concept of it just didn't make a lot of sense as to why that would be on like a dance album, something like that. Big Issue just kind of had poor production fare on there. Some of these ones like One by One were just kind of some ones that just kind of had awkward arrangements. Just I feel like they probably needed to stick with more songs like Creepy Crawl and some of these type ones just didn't really have a lot of appeal. They just did some things on here that just felt very scattershot and just out of line as far as that particular kind of one. Not out of line like it's just abrupt and kind of like distasteful, but it's just kind of the concept that just doesn't have like the appeal and the overall compellingness about it. Which I feel like songs like Outsider nails it. Mary Mary is definitely pretty nice, and there definitely need to be more songs like that. I do feel like they try to get back to some rock in like a minor sense with songs like Scapegoat and I Want More, but it just doesn't have that overall appeal, just really grasping something. I kind of feel like their grasp of like alternative rock on this particular album was just not that stellar, I'd have to say in particular. They nailed the dance songs better than they nailed the alternative rock, which is unfortunate because I definitely think the songs like Tub Thumping definitely had some appeal that probably could have lifted them into higher territory. I mean, it was that particular song that got them the most their accolades. So I definitely think it shouldn't have been that difficult to have found a follow up just with the production type fare and just nailing some of that relative evening type dredge. And another song like Tub Thumping or Top of the World, just with the melodies on point and just with radio snap and pitches like that, just to be able to have that sort of appeal and just get those factory manufactured out. I just wonder if they took like the complaints and like the critique, and I mean, I guess just being able to say that the album came out after like the single had charted, so it's just kind of the concept that they may not have been able to do that, but it's just kind of it just really made it feel like lightning in a bottle when probably that was like their strong suit that just needed like a clone of that. But they were trying to be varietized and widespread, and to that end, Amnesia is a good song, but I feel like they needed more alternative rock definitely. And then Drip 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 was just a poor type one that just was not interesting makeshift, just within the sense of it just being more kind of brunch type music that just was a lot more just kind of hop and bop type commerce that just didn't have the same appeal. So me basically recommending 6 songs out of 13 on this particular album. I'm going to go ahead and give this album like a 4.75 out of 10, I'd have to say. It's a relatively good concept. It's surprising just because this is a one-hit wonder of a project, not just from this album, but just as this band as a whole. It's that these are like their 2 biggest songs for the most part entirely. They never really outcharted these particular 2 songs, Tub Thumping and Amnesia, I'd have to say. So it's just kind of the concept. Just kind of the concept that this is like their hugest album. It's just full blown for the most part. There's not terribly much elsewise you're going to want to check out by this band. Not to say that it's horrible in that sense, but just for the most part, in terms of casual and commercial type appeal. This is like the two defining songs that they had is within the widespread kind of thing. But 4.75 score. The social score I'm going to go ahead and give, like I'll give the social score like a 6 out of 10 just because I do like the bite of some of these. Despite the, I mean, they have a huge 90s staple, one of the biggest songs out of the 90s in Tub Thumping. I feel like Amnesia is some good dance balance that has some relative appeal. It's a good follow up, just kind of the concept of some of that. Top of the World's a World Cup type song that has some the relative appeal, tub thumping, some of those type pitches. Drip 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 is at least a relatively modest kind of makeshift type song, especially in Europe, some of those type places. And they do have some good dance songs on here. It's just kind of the concept of some rave, some dance clubs, some Euro pop, some trance, some of that type of stuff. That's kind of get there's more than one or two songs that kind of have that appeal. So there's at least 4 songs on here that have that relative appeal. Defining singles within the relative sense. It's kind of scattershot, but some of this is better than expected. So I give the social score a 6. In terms of future, like once again, like this is once again Tub Thumper is Chumbawamba's biggest album, just overall and just within the appeal and just overall casual marketing and just overall in general. It's just public consensus and pitches like that. That's kind of the thing. But still, I feel like I kind of doubt that I would check out more projects, but they do at least have some other singles. So maybe if some of these songs have some of that appeal, it might be worthwhile. But for the most part, these are their biggest songs. Is kind of the concept of it. I feel like for the most part, it's just more in hardcore territory to fuck with them further just within that aspect. But I would have to say this is an appealing type project that does have some gems on here that are worth it. Definitely for like some good outings and like a dance sense and pitches like that for just some night appeal and this overall relative kind of like mild evening alternative dredge of work shift. Just got done with work shift, but just for the most part, it's mainly focused on dances with like some of that relative kind of finishing up tasks as far as that kind of goes. So it's a modest attempt, a little bit lukewarm, a little bit mediocre, but it does have some relative gems and a 90s staple on here.